So next, what are the general duties of committee officers? We bring this topic up because this is not necessarily a legal area. This is usually an area that's based on custom and law, L-O-R-E, not L-A-W. What powers do you invest in your school committee chair? So as we both said before, school committees have no authority to act on an individual basis. Individual school committee person has no power. But in fact, you're going to find out that your chair does stuff that you wouldn't have counted on, but they need to do it because it kind of lubricates the system. Like, for instance, probably your chair talks to your superintendent every other day, runs problems by your chair every other day, and that chair is intended eventually to provide that information to you. But you guys can't meet every single day, right? You can't even probably afford to meet twice a week, once a week. You're lucky if you meet twice a month, which some school committees do, and many of them only meet once a month. So you need a liaison, and you need the ability of the superintendent to bounce information off of, certainly, and to get an idea of where the school committee might be if an important matter comes before the school committee. The chair usually serves that function. A lot of times we get phone calls from frustrated new school committee members, and they say, how could the chair do this? And it's not really in the bylaws. And we're kind of left with saying, it's kind of custom that happens. So it's something that you should anticipate. If it's something that you really object to and you don't want your committee to work in that fashion, you can change your bylaws and prohibit it. But other than that, you should anticipate it and you should expect it. It's how that piece works in terms of lubrication and transfer of information. You'll also find that your superintendent very often sends out a weekly or a biweekly packet of information to you to keep you updated. And that's usually the second most important means that a superintendent has of communicating with you and getting their message to you, as well as phone calls.
When we talk about the duty of a chair, it's something that I was asked a question at the beginning of this session. Somebody said to me, well, who develops the agenda for a school committee person? Keep in mind, the school committee meeting is a public meeting of the school committee. So the school committee is supposed to be involved in the development of that agenda. So what normally happens, what I see happening around the state, is it's the chair that will sit with the superintendent in enough time so that we can post that agenda in a timely fashion to develop the agenda for the school committee meeting. Now, since the superintendent is your chief executive officer and he or she is running your district, he or she needs to know what has to go on that agenda. I mean, you can't just have a chair say, I want certain things on the agenda. So what normally happens, or what I see happening, is that the superintendent will come in with a draft agenda, and then the chairman of the school committee and the superintendent will finalize the agenda before it gets posted. Now, depending on your bylaws, you as a school committee person may or may not add something to the agenda, but it depends on what your bylaws say. For example, in the committee that I sit in Foster Gloucester, we're allowed at the prior meeting to put down new agenda items. So if I want a discussion of charter schools on the agenda, I ask that that be added, and that is on the following agenda. But normally, again, it's the chair and the superintendent that develop that agenda, and then that agenda gets posted. The superintendent doesn't do it alone. The chairman of the school committee doesn't do it alone. They have to do it together.
Typically, an organizational meeting, after your chair is elected, it's the chair's prerogative to pick subcommittees and members that go on those subcommittees, unless your bylaws say something different. So you could expect that to happen. If you have an interest in a subcommittee that's active, you should talk to your chair or who you think is going to be your chair or another school committee person in advance and let that be known.
And as a new member, be really careful, because you're going to get put on some crummy subcommittees. There are committees where you have to have a school committee person on, and believe me, some of them are like, ugh.
So also, your chair is the leader of your committee. In most cases, either the chair or the superintendent is the official spokesperson. So that means while you can certainly talk to the press, you may love the press, you may want your name in the press all the time and think that's a good thing. That's fine if that's the way you roll. But you don't have the authority to speak on behalf of the school district or the school committee. And you have to be extremely careful when you make a statement when it says school committee person, that's your personal opinion, that's not the opinion of the committee. Short of that, it's the chair that should be speaking on behalf of the committee, in my opinion. I think that's the person best suited for it.
And quite frankly, if you call me and I represent you and you say a reporter called me, what should I say? My comment to you is going to be, you're going to say no comment. And while we're on the topic of talking about of speaking to the press, now that you're a member of the school committee, you need to be very careful about what you put out there in social media. It may have been great when you were running for election that you had a Facebook page, that you had, I mean, when I ran for election, I mean, no holds barred. I mean, I said what I wanted to say. I said it about whoever I wanted to say
That's
it.
a surprise, huh?
We were in the process. There were members on the committee at the time that were going to close the school. I had been chairman of the building committee. That's the only reason I ran, is to keep the school open. I mean, the things I said in the press and my campaign literature went after anybody that was trying to close the school. Once you become on the committee and you're elected, you can't do all that. You've got to be very careful. No Facebook talking about how all the other members are no good. No Facebook saying how the superintendent is stupid. Those things you can't do. It's not professional. Some gentleman over there that said why we're called honorable. We're honorable. We need to be very aware of the fact that the public media is now our enemy. Be very careful. You're going to hear a lot of information in executive session. You're going to know a lot of confidential information. You're going to know a lot of information on personnel. You're going to hear situations about children that it's very confidential. Be very careful what you put out on social media.
With respect to the vice chair's duties, those were the vice chair's duties. Essentially none, unless the chair is absent, and then they sit in for the chair. So if your chair says to you, I have a great position for you, I'm going to make you vice chair, say, thank you very much. It's not worth much, but it's a nice accolade. Question?
Yeah, can we go back to the social media thing?
Yes.
We have a member that consistently uses social media to disparage the rest of us. Anytime there's a decision that doesn't go this person's way, we know we're all supposed to join together as a team and support the decision and go forth to the public. But yeah, we have one member that goes to the local newspaper and all over social media and just rips us to shreds. So whatever, okay. What can we do about it besides nothing?
Well, I think the school committee can make its opinion known of that kind of activity. Okay, there are people that are disruptors. They're happy to be disruptors. They got elected to a committee, but nevertheless, they're going to act as disruptors, and they're going to try to turn everything upside down for whatever their reasons happen to be. It's not an uncommon personality trait, you should know. And there's probably one in at least every 3 districts that we represent, where people have a different perspective on the school committee. They don't believe with going along with the grain. They're gonna cut against it every single time. Sometimes, in their view, it's to keep everybody honest. Sometimes it's to remain the center of attention. Sometimes it's a personality defect. It kind of is what it is. If the press puts a certain kind of person in office, they get to sit in office for all that time unless they violate the law.